So about a year ago, I started this series. It was called Gene's Music Journey, and I did until part two. Then all this pandemic started, and I stopped doing it. So about a year later, I'm going to continue this series. I mean, this is like a little, maybe a memoir, but how music played a role in my life. So I think on part two, I left off. I was talking about my life in Okinawa, Japan. And well, when I was growing up in there in the 70s, Japan was still part of United States. So as a part of deal with the Japan and United States Army still stayed in Okinawa, and a lot of the military facilities were still in there. And the typical thing happens when American GIs or military is staying at a foreign country. Their so-called nightlife or night spot evolves. And this I have seen in Korea, and I've seen in Okinawa too. Well, I thought, as I was growing up, I thought that was the way it is. But later in my life, when I went to Korea in the late 80s, the whole environment seems very familiar. And I said, hey, I've been here before. And then found out that this was near the military base. So that's why it was like that. But anyway, there was a military base. And one thing that military base brings in is the culture of music and cultural popular music. And something that I was really interested in was rock music. So that's where it kind of evolved in there. So this was probably early 1970s. I have to do more research, but there were probably three clubs that was very popular. That was kind of in the rock scene, and there was a band in the city of Koza, which had a Air Force base, and just right outside there was a club. I think the club itself was actually called Murasaki, which means purple. And the band played in the club was called the Murasaki. And maybe you have guessed it, Murasaki's purple. And they were kind of like Deep Purple tribute band. And God, they played Deep Purple good. And I was not yet 18. So in the early 70s, I was probably maybe 15, 16. So I was really not allowed to go to those clubs. And of course, they had a rule that you're not supposed to serve. I think maybe they were kind of loose on people who was coming into the clubs, but you could actually go into the club and order alcoholic beverages. And about twice each night, a police would come into the club and check if none of the minors were in the club. And the waiter would kind of say to our ears that, hey, cops are coming. I know you order a beer, but I'm going to give you a lemonade. So drink that. And then, when the cops are gone, I'll give you your beer. So that's how it was. And they kind of come in and they make sure that none of the alcoholic beverage was served for the minors. And the band started playing, and Murasaki would do, and then they would do exact same thing, like the usual smoke on the water, speed king, all the things. And this was like a middle part of Okinawa where there was the Air Force Base. But I also recall in downtown Naha, there was another club. And there was a band called Condition Green. And what Condition Green means is that the local citizens were revolting against the military occupation in Okinawa. So when Condition Green happens, all the nightclubs have to shut down. So they would be out of job. So they named the band themselves Condition Green. I believe Condition Green was like a, like a green. It's okay to go out and to the bars and have a party. And I don't know if there was a condition red, blue, or whatever. But anyway, the band was called the Condition Green. Their specialty was more straight rock and roll. They did like Steppenwolf. They did, what else did they did? They did some early Jeff Beck group. And they had a little different flavor from the band Murasaki. They were a little bit wild. And I think there's some video in the YouTube of when they actually infiltrated or went to the mainland Japan, and they became a little bit of a success. And there was another band called Zigzag. How they named their Zigzag. Anyway, they were like, kind of a tribute band to the local rock and roll scene there. And there was a kind of main attraction there. Although I was young, I would go with my friends and, watch those band play at a nightclub. Now, during the summer, remember, Okinawa is a tropical area. So there were a lot of beaches. And toward the, I believe, west coast, there was a beach called Moon Beach. Actually, in 3 or 4 years ago, when I had our high school reunion, I went there and it was still there. They would actually build a outdoor stage and do a little concert there. And this was a big thing. And all the local bands came out and played. And I think there was a band called Carol. They were actually a band from mainland. They actually played like a rockabilly type thing. They were all had a leather jacket and leather pants, and they played like straight rock and roll. They did not play that well. You have to remember, this Okinawan bands were good. I mean, really good. And I kind of remember going to that concert in Moon Beach and seeing them at the side of the stage, and they were kind of bummed out that these Okinawan local bands are really good. We kind of suck. But the band Carol actually had some few hits, so that's what they were different about. They were playing original music. The Okinawan bands did not do that. And everybody was there. Condition Green, Murasaki, Zigzag. And I also remember there was a Filipino band called Split Ends. And they were like literally a Led Zeppelin tribute band. They played really good. And the singer really played like Robert Plant and whatnot. And everybody was gathered in this outdoor stage on a grassy field. And I remember as the sun was setting, I mean, they were really unorganized, I guess. It became dark and they did not have any lighting. So they were asking people in the audience, if you drove with a car, please go to your car, drive toward the back of behind the audience and flash the, car headlights so we can have light on stage. So that was the lighting. It was amazing. And the major drink we had was a wine called Akadama, which is I think red plum wine, and people are just getting drunk on that. And um, I'm not sure. Contrary to what we think, I did not had my hands on marijuana back then. Although I know people around them were smoking, but that was not my thing. So I stood there or sat there almost all day from like noon to closing. Of course, I had no transportation, so I had to catch the last bus home. So I was counting that, hey, and I'll just leave before the last bus leaves uh, from the beach area, and then go to home. So that was the thing. Now, few months later, or maybe a few years later, we heard this rumor that in United States, in the state of New York, they had a big, large music and art festival called the Woodstock. And we heard about this. Oh, Woodstock! Everybody was there. Everybody was there. So we heard this rumor, and then we were hearing bits and pieces from the album that was released on Woodstock. I believe this was like 1970. Woodstock happened in 1969, and the album came out 1970ish. The local radio station started playing songs from the concert or from the album that they did, and they actually made a movie of that whole concert. It was called Woodstock. And in downtown Naha, there was a Japanese theater called Kokusai Gekijo, which means International Theater. And me and my brother went to see the movie. I think this was 1971. And I watched the movie Woodstock, and it blew my mind. I don't think I was playing guitar back then. We may have had a guitar in the house, but I really was not fond of it yet. One thing that I remember was this, hippie heaven in the United States, and they were playing all these rock and roll songs, and there were Can Heat playing the opening song or toward the beginning of the movie, and then there were Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Young. I vividly remember them playing, saying that this is our second gig. This is the second time we ever played in front of people. Of course, they were meaning that, uh, you know, David Crosby and Stephen Stills, they were from various other bands. I believe Hollies and Buffalo Springfield, and they got together and made a band called Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and they were in there. And I believe their album Four Way Street was already playing in the radio. So I was really into that, and I was very intrigued by the long guitar solo that Stephen Stills and Neil Young did on the song Southern Man. And there was 10 years after. I believe 10 years after is a British band, if I'm not mistaken. And Alvin Lee, unfortunately, who's no longer with us, uh, he said he flew in from a helicopter to play the song, or I'm going home. What was that? Yeah. And there was also the Sly and the Family Stone and the Who. The Who did an amazing set. The movie, I think, only did maybe 2 or 3 songs in there, but there are footage of their full performance in Woodstock on YouTube, and this was amazing. And this was height of the Who. I think they just released the rock opera Tommy, and they were doing excerpt from the rock opera Tommy, and then like whole lot of shaking going on, and My Generation and Summertime Blues and all that thing. And this really stuck in my mind, and that could have been my main catalyst of trying to pick up a guitar and learn how to play the guitar. On the way out of the theater, I saw this on the side, kind of like a few 405 long hair, because it says, "Who are those people?" And it was the band Murasaki walking out of the same theater we just saw the movie Woodstock. So they were in the same theater with us. I never met them in personally, um, but yeah, this was almost like in a small island town, almost like starstruck. Oh my gosh, yeah. So that was it. That's my Woodstock story, and I'll see you at part 4, which I'll talk about my first rock band that we started there. So thank you, and have a good one.